Michael J. Looks like every conservative is crying, well, why do we have such a quick friggin' election? Now, they want the election to complain that nobody's calling an election. They finally get an election, and it's not on their terms, and all of a sudden it's no good. Do you mean they got caught with their pants down? Is that possible? Holy crap, that might be possible. Well, let's look at a few of the right-wing, they consider themselves conservative speak tanks. What's a speak tank? You know what I mean? So let's go to the main screen. Hit F11. Yikes, can't get F11. F11, there we go. Full screen. We got Mark Carney, but before we go there, let's show you here. Moose on the loose. Now this guy is a moose on the loose, let me tell you. I'm sure he's a nice guy. But let's see what Moose on the Loose has got to say.
One of the challenges...
The economic crisis was brought on by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and you were his advisor.
I think you would find...
What economic crisis is he talking about? What economic crisis is he talking about? Is it the 100-year pandemic?
You did not...
We got breaking news every single day here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. We've got Mark Carney, reports of him saying he's going to be calling election on Sunday. We got Danielle Smith coming out and blocking the federal government's access to data information so they can't know what the emissions are, so they can't cap them. We've got Mark Carney getting absolutely grilled in Edmonton by reporters. Let's jump into this. So first up, coming from the Toronto Star, we have this one, Mark Carney to call snap election on Sunday. We have CBC reporting this as well.
Is confirming that Mark Carney intends to dissolve Parliament and call an election.
Well, there you go. The moose on the loose. Just loving it. You gotta love him, eh? Isn't he a lovable guy? Just a lovable guy. Now let's look at another one from the east coast of Canada called Elevation. Elevation, you say? Yeah, that's the name of his podcast. He's got like almost 80,000 subscribers. And let's see, is he a back rib or a side rib? Does he have any meat on the bones of these ribs? Let's see if there's any meat on his content. Yikes. Did you say that, Michael? Yes, I did. Okay, so here we go. Another one, March 21. Elevation.
What is up, you beautiful people? Hope you're doing well. And no,
crap. Poor dog's worried about
I got a
him.
visitor with me today, because you know what day
Gotta
it
love
is?
the pooch,
Do you know
though.
what day it is? A feel good Friday, and I had to include the dog in with me. Oh, what's up, big dog? Oh, he's jumping. All right. The people need to hear. The people need to listen to me. I gotta let you down, big dog. But there's the big dog right here, Doza. Big old Doza. But big things happening this week, right?
Cute, yes,
Super exciting
he
things,
is.
big dog.
He
All
is
right,
or
you
she
have to
is.
sit down. Poilievre releasing more of his policy, which is fantastic to see. We are super excited to see it because what we saw yesterday with Carney in Edmonton, who's legitimately plagiarizing Poilievre's platform.
You got anything exciting here? Guess not. So anyway, Pierre, the king of slogans, got caught with his pants down. He spent 2 years carbon tax Trudeau. Now Trudeau is no longer in the race, and things have changed dramatically. And which way is he going to pivot? He doesn't know. So now he's doing this trades thing. He's going to have another slogan for this trades thing, but he's taking it from the playbook of a guy by the name of Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario. Because, as we know, Pierre Poilievre, a.k.a. Pepe, has no original content. He has nothing that's going to help the people. And all he is a friggin' attack dog. Just attack, attack, attack. Doesn't bring anything to the table. Unless you need some mustard or ketchup, so you can say, Pepe, pass the mustard and the ketchup, please.
At this point, saying it's his, he's got all these great ideas, and the media trying to pass it off like it's these new revolutionary ideas. And so with that yesterday, and then followed up with Poilievre's performance today with his release of the Boots Not Suits platform. Say what you want about slogans. What he announced today was actually some very encouraging news, and
Slogan,
I thought would
slogan
try to move
Pepe.
itself very well into a feel-good Friday for Canadians who just want lives back, who just want to be able to work for a living, and that their money will actually go far in this country and be able to afford their way of life.
Let's be honest, buddy. Nobody has the real solution to change things the way we need it changed, because nobody understands how the construct of the fiat economy and how it works needs to be altered and reconstructed in a way that serves the people. Simple as that. I'm not going to give you the answers. I know the answer. I know how to fix it. But nobody at any level of government, any political stripe, understands how to do that. They don't understand how to reconstruct, understand what the construct is, and reconstruct. That's a tough one to wrap your head around, isn't it? And it's all coming from a guy that's not a liberal, he's not a conservative, he's not an NDP. And it's coming from a guy that just goes for the people that's best for the people. You're not going to get perfect with what we've got right now, because not many, not anyone in the world actually, understands what needs to be changed in order to fix things for the people. It can be done. There is a way. I know the way. But I don't have that kind of influence at this point in time.
If that's all they want, that's all they want. And in the process, he did a great job of showing what Carney's viewpoint and what his behavior in the past has led to, and what it will give you more of if you vote him. It was found a good balance between giving your policy and showing why the other side just doesn't stack up and is not the right person for the job, and doing it without sounding like a whiny person. So we're going to get into all that. So first off, right, I wanted to address this again in the Feel Good Friday theme. I want to talk about this. What was the biggest complaint conservatives had in the last election? And one that people keep bringing up consistently as we go into this next one. 2021, Aaron O'Toole said he agreed with everything and then stood for nothing. And that was essentially what you got. He's tried so hard to play to the center, but more so was trying to play to the center left so much that he lost his conservative base. And in the process, people...
Why don't we get away from this left and right stuff? And let's just deal with what we need to move forward. Let go of the left, let go of the right. Get out of those boxes. All you're doing is dividing people with make-believe. Well, your allegiance to the left, your allegiance to the right. That's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. Figure out what works best for you, your neighborhood, your province, and for the people. All the people, not just yourself. Everybody.
Still didn't vote for him. It was a lesson learned. Admittedly, I was getting a little nervous that Poilievre was doing something similar this time around. But now that he's starting to push his policies forward, he's starting to move the Overton window back to where its rightful location. It's still got a long ways to go, but the process and the progress is there, which is great to see. What do I mean by this? Well, so far, again, we're early on when election's going to kick off on Monday, or election campaigning will kick off on Monday. But so far, things that I haven't heard in this election yet is identity politics. I think that's a big one. Niche topics that Trudeau's Liberals would always talk about.
What is identity politics? Throwing things in a box again. What are identity politics? Explain.
It's viewed as a negative thing because it is the same Liberal Party, don't get me wrong. But when I look in the perspective and lens in singular issue of an election campaign, this is actually a positive move in the right direction. It means that people are being heard. It means that people were listened to by the Conservative Party, and they put so much pressure on the Liberals that they were getting crushed in the polls before Carney showed up. Then all of a sudden Carney shows up. He's like, yeah, we're going to go to the center. We're going to rip off Poilievre's platform and hopefully no.
How are you going to rip off a platform that doesn't exist? Poilievre has no platform. All it is, tax cuts and free markets. Nothing else. Doug Ford came out with, let's do trades, let's support trades. And then all of a sudden, a day later, Pierre Poilievre, let's do trades. So who is copying who? As a matter of fact, Pierre Poilievre phoned Doug Ford, and Doug Ford didn't have the time of day to speak to him. And why? Because Pierre Poilievre has not spoken to anybody in his party, for the most part, because he thought he had it in the bag, because he was outdoing everybody with all these slogans, brainwashed the electorate that the carbon tax is going to make you rich by getting rid of it, which was the dumbest friggin' thing. Just by getting rid of the consumer carbon tax isn't going to cut it. And anybody that thinks getting rid of the industry carbon tax, which is not passed on to the consumer, it's a credit system, which actually needs to be in place because we have to open new markets, and that's why Carney was already over in Europe, because if we're going to deal with the European markets, we need to have this industry carbon credits set up and in place, which we already have. We have to open new markets. We cannot be dependent on the U.S. anymore. In the future, if the U.S. comes around and wants to play nice again, fine. We'll play nice with them. We've got nothing against them. We've had a long-standing relationship with the United States, but in the interim, we have to move forward and take care of Canada. So that's why Carney went to Europe. Now, he also should have gone to Mexico. And that's going to be an important one as well. And this one, hopefully we don't miss out on that. But nonetheless, the industry carbon tax needs to be in place because that is a system that works with the new markets we're looking to open. If the Americans come around later on, that's fine. And that's where we're at right now. So getting rid of the industry carbon tax, which is not trickled down to the consumer, is not appropriate because we need new markets. And secondly, Carney talked about eliminating the barriers between the provinces by Canada Day, July 1. That might be a bit of a stretch, but this is another thing that is necessary to mitigate the effects of the tariffs. And this is what you need to understand.
No one notices. And you realize it from Carney's campaign so far, he hasn't uttered a word about identity politics. They have no interest in getting into that, which means we are winning. That is a good sign. It's a very different situation.
Identity politics, come on. Quit dividing people. Let's just do what we need to do to get to where we need to get to. We got tariffs that we don't want to deal with. We need new markets. That's why we need Europe. Interprovincial barriers removed. These are the two things that Carney's working on right now, and he's committed to. You don't get that from Pierre Poilievre. Sorry, monsieur. He wants to get rid of the industry carbon tax. Meanwhile, for the new markets that's going to make a big change to the future of Canada, you need those industry carbon tax policies and systems and levers of systems in place now. Simple as that.
Situation than what we saw in 2021, where Trudeau is pulling O'Toole over to the left. This time around, Poilievre and the Conservatives are pulling Carney and the Liberals back over to the right.
Like, let that stuff go. We went through a pandemic, the worst thing that ever happened. It created an inflation spike because you got to remember, people needed an income, and when you have no GDP and you have money going out to people, you create inflation. It's a 1 in a 100-year thing that happened, and it happened worldwide. Pierre Poilievre at that time didn't want to help the workers. And it's only because the Liberals and the NDPs together made sure that the people got what they needed to get through the pandemic. Otherwise, it would have been a lot worse than what it was. But a result of that was supply, because everything got shut down. So when you're putting out that money and you have no gross domestic product going out, you get inflation. And that's what happened. Simple as that.
And that is a positive thing. I'm not saying it's the be-all, end-all, but it is a sign that things are moving in a good direction and that people's voices are being heard. And now, regardless if they're going to do it or not, is a different issue. But right now, and again, in the frame of an election campaign, the fact that identity politics are being left in the dust, the idea of DEI being left in the dust, all of those issues.
DEI. Like, this is another boondoggle that's coming from the United States. Pierre Poilievre just mimicking mimicking Donald Trump. And then all of a sudden, you see what Donald Trump's doing, and he's trying to get away from that, but he can't. He's not sure what to do, because DEI, diverse equity and inclusion, is not such a bad thing, but everybody makes it out to be such a bad thing. You're seeing black history in the United States being whitewashed. Robinson, famous baseball player, his records being, and any records that he had, like he was a military guy also, being whitewashed from the military. And then they use woke, this woke way of doing things. All woke is empathy, sympathy, and benevolence. Treating people with respect, with compassion, with empathy and sympathy. And you're making it into something else that has to be conquered. Let's get rid of these fights, these wars, the separation left and right, and just do what needs to be done for the people. See if he's got anything else to say here.
Gone. Out of the vernacular for now. I think is a positive thing for Canadians. It's a positive thing for regular people who can't pay their bills, who can't afford a home, who can't get health care. Those are the real issues that people want addressed.
Yeah, they want them addressed, and the thing is, people can't afford these things, and why can't they afford these things? It's because you got a problem with the fiat economy and the way it's structured. For too long, and it's happened in the United States, they abused the reserve currency privilege they had, where tax cuts to the top 1% and 10% created these huge deficits. Conservatives are the same. You give the tax cuts, and you've got to be careful how you do it to the middle class and the bottom, it'll feed right back into the system. But the trickle down from the top 1 to 10% doesn't work. And that's why you've had these deficits build over time, because that's the way Republicans and conservatives have done it historically. It just doesn't work. So now the system's out of whack. And that's because of free markets and deregulation. Take away rent controls, you open up free markets. You got the rental markets in the provinces of Ontario, which comes under the provinces, not the feds, where they've deregulated with rent controls, removed rent controls. Corporations have bought up properties and used software to price fix and increase the cost. It's right there in front of you. You could see it. But somebody fills your head with all sorts of nonsense, and you don't find out what's the real issue at hand. So let's go back to the main screen. And here we go. Mr. Steve Boots. You might not like this gentleman. He's a school teacher from Saskatchewan. I don't agree with everything he says, but he says some rather poignant things that have merit. So here we go. This is 5 days ago.
I want to take a second and talk about this tweet from Pierre Poilievre because it is ridiculous. He attacked Mark Carney, claiming, quote, Mark Carney has nothing but slogans. which is, without exaggeration, the funniest thing that Pierre Poilievre has ever said. To attack Mark Carney for his reliance on slogans, one must wonder, did Poilievre do it from behind the axe the tax lectern? The common sense one? The spike the hike one? Stop the crime? Bring it home? Canada first? Canada last? Canada always? Which one did he use to complain about Mark Carney's use of slogans? How else will we know
Or
the verb
suits
now?
to boots, the
Jenny,
new one.
If you are attacking Mark Carney for using slogans, the loud announcement of the total lack of self-awareness is genuinely a little shocking. Does he also attack Mark Carney for wearing bland suits? Because Poilievre attacking Mark Carney for things that he does himself seems to be the move. I want to take...
So there you go. Now, what's interesting here is projection. This is Poilievre. Another thing he's copied from Trump. And these are the things that, and another, for authoritarians, every accusation is a confession because they lack the ability to think. That may be a little harsh. So projecting their insane beliefs on others is how they survive. Pepe is not different. Typical conservative, every accusation is an admission. We've seen that with Trump. And that's all that Pierre Poilievre has done. Accusations. He came out with his new slogan, suits. Boots for suits or suits for boots? Boots for suits. Meanwhile, it's a trades and industry thing, which is a thing that really is promoted on the provincial level. But it's only after Doug Ford in the province of Ontario started promoting a trades push for the province of Ontario. So, just copying what is and what is. And that's that there. There we go. So what more do we have for you? You got the loose moose, elevation. Oh, and here's another good one. This lady just found this morning. Let's go to the PMP. Lifelong NDP voter. She's got 1 million plus subscribers. She claims she's a lifelong NDP voter, voting conservative in 2025. Now, isn't that odd? NDP going conservative. But see what she's got to say. Presenting the Five Pines, new episode every week. Politics, pop culture, a Canadian production.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Five Pines podcast.
Hello.
I'm your host, Jamie B. So, over the last few days, I've been getting lots of messages, either extremely hateful ones telling me to myself, or other people asking me why I'm voting for Pierre Poilievre. So today we're going to be talking about why I'm voting for Pierre Poilievre, because I keep trying to make a TikTok. It's way too long, so we're going to make this into a YouTube video. So let's get into it. First of all, I would like to say I was an lifelong NDP Green voter, okay? And why I'm not going to be voting NDP is because of Jagmeet Singh. So that's your answer in a quick short. He sold the party out, and I no longer recognize it as the party that I thought it was. All of these things in Canada have gotten significantly worse. You cannot convince me that either the Liberals or the NDP, who have had power for the last 2 years, are going to do anything to fix this, because they haven't done anything to fix this. Okay. Let's go on to why I'm voting for Pierre, though, because that's why I'm not voting NDP could be a whole different...
Holy moly, hasn't been fixed. Instant noodles. Where's our case of ramen noodles? Instant noodles. You know, you just went through a period of the worst pandemic in 100 years, created a financial crisis that resonated around the world. It created an inflation spike around the world, and it created a problem for every country around the world. And it's not an instant noodle fix where you just open the case of the ramen noodles or ramen noodles, add some boiling water, and everything gets fixed. It doesn't happen that quickly. You'll notice that the United States actually rebounded the best. And why? Because of immigration. And the Republicans and the conservatives have been demonizing immigration as bad. All of North America is based on immigrants. It's the immigrants that have created everything you have today, whether it's the United States or Canada. And it's what actually changed America to have a positive GDP better than any other country after the inflation spike of the pandemic. Canada just behind. And how? Because of immigration. Now the issue is, on a macro and microeconomic basis, Canada's population is no bigger than the state of Texas. So you got to understand how these comparatives work. Now Canada did a little too much in immigration, so it takes longer to filter into the system. That's why it's slower to see the cause and effect. But still, Canada did very well on a comparative basis worldwide. And Joseph Biden of the United States did excellent. But everybody blamed him for the inflation, but it was the tax breaks of Donald Trump and the resultant pandemic that created an inflation spike worldwide. And the tax breaks that the conservatives or Republicans did in the States created a real boondoggle. But Biden stick-handled and created an economy that was ready to go. All Trump had to do was play golf every day, put it on autopilot, and he'd be doing better than he would now. But he wants to put his mark on things, the same as a dog pisses on a fire hydrant. He did that with the free trade agreement back in 2018. And so he came up with this USMCA, which we renegotiated. He said it was the best deal ever. That now he says whoever made all these deals before is crap. And he's ignored all the deals he's made. And he's putting tariffs on everybody. So, like, it's utter nonsense. Let that stuff go. Understand what's happened and what needs to be done. So that's enough of this girl, NDP to conservative. Now we've got some other stuff. Ooh. Now here's the other thing. Once this tariff situation started becoming an issue, Trudeau was here at the time. Carney was not a candidate at the time. So Trudeau got together with all the premiers. But guess what? Daniel Smith, good old Daniel Smith, from Alberta, you gotta love her. Gotta love this girl. So here she is. From the Premier's conference with Trudeau, she's doing it virtually. She's down trying to do a side deal with who? Donald Trump, Mar-a-Lago. And then here's another article on her. And instead of coming back for Premier's meeting in Ottawa, she went to Panama instead. And right now, instead of the last couple days meeting with Carney and the premiers, she's doing a fundraiser for the Republicans down in the United States. You gotta love these conservatives. And here, March 11, from her Facebook page, Danielle Smith, Alberta, and here's a comment. You sitting down and negotiating to separate or become the 51st state? Free the West, no more Ottawa. Like, this is where Canada and across from east to west, we need to rally together and work together to create our own situation that we are not dependent on any other country like the U.S. or anybody else. Well, this is what we're doing. So Scott Moe, which is Saskatchewan, and this Danielle Smith are all of a sudden wild cards. Now, she meets with Carney. Today's the 22nd of March, so a couple days ago, she meets with Carney. And all of a sudden, she's making these demands. Didn't do that with Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, she got scared because she spent all this time with Donald Trump. She came back and she felt like she had been turned on or turned against because Trump's on a different game plan. I've got a good idea where he's coming from and where he's going to. So now she wants to make demands for Canada. She's going to hold the country up for ransom. Meanwhile, Alberta's landlocked. And instead of working with the country, she's making all these demands. If you don't make these demands, she's got to stomp her feet and just take her game and play somewhere else. But she's making these. And here's the other thing. Who's a consultant with her in her government? A guy by the name of Stephen Harper. Just saying, folks. Here we go. She says, I also made it clear that Alberta, as owner of the resource, will not accept an export tax or restriction of Alberta's oil and gas to the United States, and that our province is no longer agreeable to subsidizing other large provinces who are fully capable of funding themselves. Lastly, I made it clear that federal mismanagement of Jasper and Banff national parks resulted in last year's tragic wildfire in Jasper. Oh. Just point a finger and blame it on somebody else. So the tinderbox or the dry bed is mismanagement of the feds, but if it had worked out well, you would have taken credit for it. Meanwhile, down in California, the wildfires were based on the same factors at play that happened with Jasper. So furthermore, she states, with the federal election about to be called, I encourage all Albertans to get involved in what is likely one of the most pivotal and important elections in our nation's history. You know, so you're trying to separate instead of rally together. We need to rally together. When have we had a president of the United States that's a predator that's causing the issues that he's causing worldwide? Like, let's be really frank here. You think Trump is rational? If you really think you're going to deal with him and come out, he's not done any agreement, like he wants to do another agreement with Iran. He had an agreement with Iran. He ripped it up. He's got an agreement with Canada and Mexico. He's ignored them, even though he renegotiated them. Guy's a predator. The guy's got different motives. We're not going to go into it in this video. So with the federal election about to be called, Danielle Smith furthermore states, I encourage all Albertans to get involved in what is likely one of the most pivotal and important elections in our nation's history, and to support the party and candidates that have consistently advocated for freeing Alberta. For freeing Alberta? Holy crap. Just freeing Alberta. Don't give two friggin' craps about Canada. Just free Alberta. That's where she's coming from. Now, let's look at something here. Let's look at the bio of Marlene Danielle Smith. Okay? She's been pretty much an advocate for the oil and gas industry from day one. But here's another thing. She was I believe she was the head, or yeah, she was the leader of the Wild Rose Party. And if you understand the Wild Rose Party, it's one of the early parties of Alberta that's a far right-wing thing that has been around for a long time. And we're not going to go into that, but the Wild Rose Party's been around for a long time, and they've never been party to Canada, period. They just want to take care of Alberta. Meanwhile, Alberta has not spent any time remaking itself into something different. Every province has had to do it because times have changed. So, Wild Rose Party. And then Jason Kenney resigned and then announced her campaign for leadership of the United Conservative Party. And that's how she came into power there in Alberta. But never been a federalist. Just Alberta only. And, the country from coast to coast, it's a balance. And it's working together to create these balances that's most important. It's not my way or the highway. That's not a way to do anything. And especially in time of need like we are, need to work together.
Cost on to the people in the United
let's go
States.
into this here.
Tariffs get paid when you import. Surcharges get paid when you export. And so by moving that cost directly to the American consumer, it sends a very clear message that Canada holds a lot more power in this situation than the United States estimates. And yes, that pun was on purpose. I apologize for nothing. And this worked. Threatening to shut off the power and applying a surcharge to the power scared the crap out of the US. They immediately did a full media blitz to apply pressure to take off the surcharge. They slapped an extra 25% tariff on steel and aluminum that was lifted by the end of the day, leading to this insane single-day tariff chart. And frankly, they flattered Doug Ford. Donald Trump called Doug Ford a strong man and said he respected the electricity surcharge. They offered Doug Ford a meeting, which he of course...
Meanwhile, this guy Howard Lutnick, he took over this investment firm. You wouldn't know about this unless you're in the know, but Canfor, I think it was, something like that. But they had an office in the Twin Towers in 9/11 when the towers went down. So here's this guy, Howard Lutnick, that we have to deal with that's working with Trump. You know what he did? The towers went down. The people that died in their office, their paychecks, he wouldn't pay them out to the families. Just a wonderful, warm-hearted type of guy. He just loves Christmas. Just thought I'd share this fact with you.
Surcharge. They offered Doug Ford a meeting, which he of course immediately accepted by succumbing to flattery and suspending the electricity surcharge. Then they attended the meeting, at which point Donald Trump said that it was, quote, a little threat, and that, quote, this will be done in one...
Yeah, but here's the thing. Okay, Doug Ford surprised the Americans, and then Trump got out his big paddle and flicked back and scared the crap out of Doug Ford. This, you're not going to hear with this conversation with Mr. Boots. Mr. Smith, we call him, Steve Boots.
1 hour. We announced what we were going to do, and they withdrew their little threat. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, said that the 50% tariff threat was a tactic to, quote, break some guy in Ontario. And they did. They broke him almost immediately. And this is the problem. Doug Ford did something correctly. He applied a surcharge to electricity, and then he screwed it up instantly. Why? Because Doug Ford is incompetent. He is astonishingly bad at his job, and the only thing he actually cares about is his ego. Literally. Donald Trump and Howard Lutnick pumped his tires and fed his ego a little bit, and it was enough to get Doug Ford to give in entirely. Just disgraceful and pathetic. At this point, Doug Ford should just get disgraceful and pathetic printed on a t-shirt and wear it around. It would save everybody time. But Doug Ford isn't the only one who's failed entirely when it comes to tariffs. Danielle Smith is not far behind. She has specifically encouraged an approach to diplomacy to focus on stopping the trade war. And instead, just giving the United States everything they want. No counter tariffs, no fighting back, just capitulation. She is essentially encouraging diplomacy and no action whatsoever. Canada just eats the tariffs that the United States applies to us and does not apply counter tariffs at all. Why? What's their strategy? It appears to be, if we're nice enough to the bully, maybe they'll bully someone else. But more than that, Danielle...
And there she is. the Florida fundraising gala for a conservative group on March 13th, 2025. And then she's going to be in Washington, D.C. for a fundraising gala for a conservative U.S. nonprofit, the Prager University Foundation, on March 27. She's not even meeting with Carney and the premiers. Not even in Canada. She wasn't there for the first meeting. She did it virtually from a hotel room in the States.
Smith wants to encourage the United States. You know how you can tell? Because she's going to Florida for a fundraising gala for a conservative group called PragerU, with American conservative political commentator Ben Shapiro. You know, the guy who said this about Canada.
President Trump has basically proposed that we annex Canada, and I feel like they will greet us as liberators at this point.
She's gonna go share a stage with him. Why? Diplomacy, I guess? I don't know. But don't worry, Danielle Smith has decided that it's going to benefit the province of Alberta for some reason, so she's going to make taxpayers cover the costs. You're going to pay to fly her down there and for her lodging, so that she can help fundraise for an American conservative think tank. You know, the folks who want to annex us? Them. She's fundraising for them. And look, if that doesn't make it abundantly clear that Danielle Smith and Doug Ford are far more concerned about their personal interests, ego, and branding than they are about Canada, I don't know what to tell you. For starters, premiers don't have a role in international trade negotiations. That is a federal responsibility. Doug Ford did not belong at the trade negotiations with...
Yeah, Dougie just got a little bit in over his head, and he got slapped back very hard. We understand that. So where are we going to next? We could go to Mo in Saskatchewan, but we're not going to. We're not going to go there. We're just going to look at this one here. Here we got Danielle Smith. Make it bigger for all you guys that like big stuff, that think big.
About the tariffs on American airwaves this morning. She was on CNN, and she said the province will have to look at other trade markets if the tariffs stay in place.
If the Americans don't want to buy our products, if that's part of the solution is that they want to buy less from us, then we're going to have to look for new markets for our oil and gas, for our uranium, for our nickel, for all of our critical minerals.
No kidding. That's what Carney was over in Europe for. That's why you need a carbon tax to be able to deal with these new markets, Danielle. And here this is 2 weeks ago, after she spent all that time at Mar-a-Lago with a guy by the name of Kevin O'Leary. That dollar means more to him than anything else. And she got really hurt because all that time spent with Donald Trump, she got rebuffed. But still, she's got to go back down and do the conservative thing.
For our electricity. And again, I don't think that that's the intention of what American job creators want. I think they want those raw materials so they can create good American jobs, so they can create American goods that the world can buy.
Smith was asked why Alberta liquor stores are pulling American bottles from the shelves. She said if Americans aren't going to buy products from Canadian companies, Canadians should buy more domestic beer, wine, and spirits. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith spoke about the tariffs on American airwaves this morning. She was on CNN.
So look at the comments. So those trips to Mar-a-Lago and the inauguration were not exactly a success, were they? Tariffs will not go away till Trump goes away. She doesn't really understand what's going on, and most people don't. David Frum has got a very good idea where Donald Trump is coming from. I got a very good idea where Donald Trump's coming from because I know about the Russian connection with Putin. And Trump is just he's just a predator. don't even think you can deal with him and strike a deal that benefits two parties. Trump has never had a deal done that benefits two parties. Except for in the United States, the USMCA, the last deal that was redone after the North America Free Trade deal, when he had some normal people in his cabinet in order to help with that. Now he's learned from that time. He's doing things totally different. He's gotten the American system. He's breaking it, and not in a good way. And he's a predator. He's hooking up with Putin. Meanwhile, be smart. Our GDP in Canada is very similar to the Russians. So Russia's a superpower, and yet you see this guy Trump worrying about Putin. And that's where Brian Mulroney understood where Russia's position should be on the global market. And everybody's allowing this guy Putin to push or punch far above where he should be. But this guy Trump is doing it for a different reason, and you don't get it. Most people do not get it. You'd have to understand what happened during the dissolution of the USSR when Boris Yeltsin was in government, in the opposition, working behind the back of Gorbachev. And this is how Putin thereafter got, and it's a lot more than people understand. Most people don't even understand what the heck went on. Simple as that. And I'll do a video on that so I can explain to you exactly what went on there. So there we go. We're not going to go any further into this. So let's be clear. Pierre Poilievre has got nothing to offer the Canadian people. You've already seen Carney go to Europe, start working with the Europeans to open up new markets. You've also seen Carney explain that by July 1, Canada Day, that's his target date to have all the barriers between the west coast and the east coast of Canada eliminated as best as he can in order to create a free trade market within Canada. That alone will make up for the difference with the Americans, and then we can deal with the Americans in a different way and not create a situation where they're dependent on them or we're put into a position where they can monopolize and use it against us to their advantage. The strategy is very important here. So questions, comments, throw in the comment section. And remember, when in doubt, when things get beyond your control and you're not sure what to do because anxiety kicks in, you can't think for yourself, and you're spiraling out of control, take a few deep breaths and do what my buddies do. Have a nap. So love and peace to everyone. Take care. Talk to you all soon. Ciao for now.